Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz wrote a wonderful book entitled Biblical Images. In this book, Rabbi Steinsaltz takes our biblical heroes and writes an easily readable narrative to explain the person's life and story. Just like we today have many movies that speak to a superhero's origin story, like Superman or Batman or Captain Kirk in Star Trek and the like, Steinsaltz similarly tells us about the origin stories of our biblical heroes based on the Torah and other later rabbinic understandings. One of the most fascinating characters in the book is the character of Rivka, of Rebecca. Steinsaltz picks up on the fact that Rebecca is the exact opposite of her husband, Yitzchak, Isaac, and that she is complementary to him. Isaac appears outstandingly as a person who does not make decisions. Isaac is a person to whom things happen. In his first great test, the binding on the altar, Isaac did not act, but rather was acted upon. He did not go out to seek a wife himself. Instead, a wife was brought to him. And when Rebecca finally arrives on the scene, it is Rebecca who makes decisions, who acts, who is confident. Steinsaltz, picking up on rabbinic midrashim or stories, explains Rebecca's origin story. He explains that while Abraham and his family is described as great and powerful, that Abraham's brothers and his descendants, that Nahor and Nahor's children leading to Rebecca, that family line declined, that they lost their property, that they engaged in petty trade. Rebecca, Nahor's granddaughter, who was the opposite of Isaac. She grew up surrounded by trustworthy folk. Isaac grew up around trustworthy folk. According to Steinsaltz, Isaac's world was supportive and secure. He could hesitate or even make mistakes because there were always others who loved him and were concerned about him to back him up. Isaac knew little of the world of evil or of deceit because his immediate world was harmonious and whole. Rebecca, on the other hand, grew up in a world whose failings she knew all too well. She had learned the meaning of cheating, of hypocrisy, and saw it firsthand. This narrative shapes the image of Rebecca that we read about in the Torah. Rebecca is assertive, she is confident, and yet she also brings with her a bit of a deceptive side, one that manipulates her husband, Isaac, to do what she knows is right, to give her son Yaakov, Jacob, the birthright in place of Esav, his older brother. In the coming weeks, as we read these fascinating stories about our ancestors, I hope that you will take time to explore who they were, how they grew up, and what their origin stories were and how that affected them as people. For by learning about where we and our ancestors come from, we can learn much about ourselves, our families, and our communities today. Shabbat Shalom.